Okay. Okay, friends.
Am I still sideways?
Yes.
This is weird. Okay. I think
Okay.
because you started your video out sideways, I have no idea.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. So, it looks like, so y'all can go ahead and put yourselves on mute if you want to. You can leave it open if you want. No big deal. It's totally up to you. So, okay. And get started then. Hi, Shelby. How are you?
Hi.
How is everyone else? Everyone looks fine. Everyone looks good. Okay. Okie dokie, artichoke. So I would say go ahead and get some water or some hot tea or something. Maybe a pen and paper if you'd like to. And okay. So the goal for today is to be in a safe space to have an informed discussion concerning spirituality. Okay. The questions from participants already, but you're more than welcome to ask topical questions as we go on. We will have a Q&A at the end of the whole discussion and interview. This is an hour long, and I'll keep on track by just, looking at my phone and making sure that the clock is going. And at the end, you don't have to take a book, but at the end, you'll have a choice to win a book. Either Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Bad Habit of Being Yourself. It can be hardback or audio, or the hardback version only of Nicola Van Dyke's Becoming Love Meditations. Really good. Love that book. Okay. So, reminding that we are not medical professionals or liable for any decisions you're following this session concerning yours, your pet's health, or your life in general. If there is a state of addiction, abuse, or self-harm, please consult a licensed therapist or counselor. Okay. Okay. And we also have, we're recording this, so if that makes you feel uncomfortable, let us know. We're going to be posting it on some of our other sites. Okay. So Shelby is the founder of Shelby Grimes Healing. She received her massage therapy license back at Austin's Healing and Science and Arts in 2014.
It's Texas Healing and Arts, Kendra.
Oh, okay. And she has been traveling all over the world during her Theta Healing practitioner and Theta Healing instructor certifications. She's also verified in Reiki, ring drop technique, and crystal viewing layouts. Okay. So, Shelby, what is Theta Healing?
Oh, okay. So, hi, everyone. So my name's Shelby. So what I do is like she said, I'm a massage therapist, but I'm also a theta healer. So theta healing is a bit different to describe, but basically what it is it's usually, you can do it by yourself, but it's usually a one-on-one session if you do it with someone or with a practitioner. It's a one-on-one session, and what you're doing is you're clearing limiting beliefs that no longer serve you. So basically, like, things will happen like throughout your life, past lives, like all of that. But anyways, so basically what will happen is throughout your life, you develop belief systems. And belief systems are usually held on like 4 different levels. So like it could be things that you've learned this lifetime, like things that you've learned like DNA wise that you actually inherited. You can inherit beliefs from your ancestors, which science has proven that, like, I guess, like, let's say your grandma, great-great-grandma was in the World War II, and sometimes, like, you can be afraid of something or something makes you feel uncomfortable, but it could have just been, like, something just got passed down. Let's say you see an army tank or something, or an airplane, or the sound of an airplane could, like, irritate and you have no idea why. It could have been that it was passed down from her. But usually what happens is the beliefs that you carry shape your life because you create your own reality. In essence, basically everything you do in life, you create. So all those situations or good things that you attract to you, good or bad, you're learning from them. So, sorry, my brain just like went blank today. This is a little nerve-wracking.
Fine. Take a breath. You are a human being. We're all humans. Keep going.
All right. So anyways, So basically what it is the practitioner goes up into a theta brainwave, which is just through a light meditation. You connect with source energy, creator, God. It's all the same energy. It's unconditional light and love. So when the practitioner connects with this energy, the brain goes into a theta brainwave, which that's why hence the name theta healing. And so basically what the practitioner does is, like, in a session, let's say you basically have an issue, or like it could be a relationship issue, it could be like stuff's not coming to you, health problems, fears, phobias, anything in life basically. So when you're on a one-on-one session with somebody and the practitioner is connected, basically the practitioner is intuitively guided to ask questions, and we kind of like just get down to the root issue of like what happened. Like it could be in, let's say, for instance, a guy comes in and he's having money issues, and you're kind of visiting with him and asking him questions, and basically, you kind of dig down, and he believes money's the root of all evil. And you're like, you keep digging down, and then basically what he believes is, well, he's worthless. And you're like, well, who told you you're worthless? He's like, well, my mom told me I'm worthless. I was like, when did she tell you that? He was like 5 or 6. So then basically I just asked him, well, would you like that to be changed? And you would just, basically it's kind of like a focused prayer. You just ask him if things would like to be changed, and he has to say yes for it to be changed. And I intuitively just ask creator or God to change it. And it's just changed the person, which is actually really cool, because theta healing is the highest form of healing, because everything's made up of God, creation. At the very root of everything is creation. You're made up of God. You know what I mean? Like it's a difficult thing to describe. But anyway, so basically when you change things, you're changing things on like the very center, the core of like creation. So basically you're just so mainly it's kind of like that. Like I'll explain it more throughout this. Like
I think
that's
you really well, Shelby.
It's kind of like spiritual counseling in a sense.
Right. So we'll just go ahead and hit on more theta healing as we go. You don't have to think about it so much. Because you stopped on the point, like, where on religion and spirituality. So what has your journey been with religion and spirituality?
So my journey's been probably, well, I don't know, it's maybe different from a lot of people's, but and then maybe it's not, because everybody has a different journey of theirs. So for me, my mom was very open to not just like, we went to church, we went to a lot of things, but I would find myself in church not wanting to be there, or it was just bored, like it didn't really resonate with the stuff. I found it interesting and learned about it, it's just I didn't resonate with it. But my mom taught me and you how to Reiki ourselves when we were like 3 years old. So it's like so that's kind of more energy work. But spirituality, that's defining spirituality is kind of hard to do for everybody. It's a different thing. But
seeing as we're sisters, I do know a little of your story, but we did have religion in a different way. And
that's true.
So how did that affect you specifically? Having other family members?
Truthfully, and I don't have anything against religion. I think it's amazing. You believe in lots of things, which we'll talk about that. But for me, my experience in being in that when I was like smaller, teenager, like all the way up until maybe like 18, I always had like a little bit of hatred towards religion, just because I didn't want to do it, and it was like somebody trying to force their beliefs on me, and I didn't want to believe that. Just through family stuff wise, or other people that and I didn't like that, because I kind of like to find things out, and if it resonates with me, it resonates with me,
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of like most people. But so I just had a lot of anguish towards it. But it's so it's just kind of been that journey for me.
Okay. So how would you say religion would impact anybody growing up? I hear people say the words trapped, guilty, fearful, resentful. So how could that impact you as you're an adult, and how would theta healing, or just in general, what do you think about that?
So are you talking about like childhood growing up with it?
Yes, religion impacting you as you grow up. The words I hear people use whenever they talk about it, whenever we're working on spirituality, is trapped, guilty, fearful, resentful. They feel that way. And how do they get out of those lower level energy feelings to really connect?
So, and it's one of those touchy things to say to people, because a lot of, when you're dealing with religion or stuff that's happened with you through growing up, basically what happens is, when you're growing up, a lot of people go to church, and in different religions, you're taught that if you do different stuff, and you will go to hell or you will be punished. And a lot of times it doesn't even have to be like you learned that in, growing up. It could be, inherited. It can be like other past stuff. So I'm just saying, if you are feeling like that, it doesn't have to be just what happened in this lifetime. It can be other things. But most times religion connects with a lot of stuff that's limiting, just like a lot of people feel like they have to sacrifice themselves for other people, and it's just stuff that you're taught growing up, even in a Christian household, or not Christian, but just religious household, going to church, is you'll get punished if you do other stuff. I've had many clients where I've worked with them, and we're in a session, and they're even like really kind of terrified to do a session with me because they don't think it's of God. You know what I mean? And it's
a belief system. So you want to go ahead and hit on belief systems and what belief systems are?
So like I said, so belief systems, what happens is, like I was mentioning earlier, let's say, it's a good example, is the mom told the son at some age that, say like 5 or 6, that he was worthless. And what happens is, a lot of times when you trust people, and when you trust people, and you're open to them, their opinions matter to you. It's like if you're walking down the road and somebody you don't know tells you you're worthless, and you don't know them, you're like, oh, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care that's your opinion. But when you're open to somebody and you care what they think about you, you're like, oh, that must be true because they told me. But also, being 5 and 6, sometimes you don't have that discernment or the wisdom at that age to say, oh, that's not true.
You just said that must be true. So in the back of our mind, do we say that when we're vulnerable around caretakers, around people who are taking care of us, people that we depend on survival, we take what they say, what they do as this must be true. So that is technically a belief system.
So belief systems, a lot of other people call them stories too. So it depends on what you want to call it. A lot of people refer to them as stories. So it's kind of like what you're telling yourself in life. Like it's kind of like it's a narrative or a story, meaning like we in theta healing, we can test beliefs, because I don't know if y'all have heard of muscle testing. Some of y'all have, but it's basically a biometric feedback type test. Basically, like, you stand up, you have to make sure you're hydrated, and you basically you're asking your subconscious if you have the belief or not, but it can only be like yes or no questions, because your subconscious only knows yes or no. It doesn't know can't, don't, won't. So basically you can ask yourself questions, like you can stand up, and if you say, okay, you can say, I'm worthless. And if you rock forward, you're kind of lean forward, it's yes, and if you lean forward, it's a no. A lot of people don't want to believe they have these belief systems, but on some level they actually do. So what happens is, with, let's say, the guy that has the worthiness issues, he is developing, it's kind of like a tree. He like planted a seed of, oh, my mom told me I'm worthless, I must be worthless. And so all these other beliefs start developing on them, and it grows and grows and grows. So he's attracting all these situations to him where they're not good, but if you're learning from them, because everything that you attract, and even good or bad, you're learning lessons and you're learning virtues from them. But that's kind of what belief systems are. It's very crazy how they just develop, but a lot of people don't know about it until you actually start wondering why. Like, let's say you're in a store and somebody's wearing an orange sweater, and you're like, oh, I don't like that sweater. Well, why did you have that reaction to it? Because it's just a sweater. So you're like, then you actually start thinking yourself, you're like, why am I upset with that sweater? Because you should have like a neutral reaction to it, to a sweater. If you don't like the color, that's okay. But if you have like a reaction to it,
You mean
then
a physiological or emotional reaction?
either one, like if it can either be a thought, like, ugh, you know what I mean? Like very critical. You can start asking yourself, or you can do it with theta healing. But anyway, so if you kind of like follow it down of like, why do I hate that sweater? Well,
So
you know, it's just like, well, that color. Well, what happened with the color? Well, when I was 7 years old, a girl I didn't like at school, she pushed me down and she was wearing that color of sweater, and so on and so forth. So you see what I mean? So like basically
right.
what you're doing is you're healing on like past traumas, issues, and a lot of other things that can develop into other things that you're not really realizing. And you're like, oh, why am I like this? You know, so basically you're just clearing up stuff that doesn't serve you.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, those are past trauma things.
Oh,
like,
so let's just move. I think we'll hit on that. So there's a lot of information out there. So you're talking about theta healing, and what you're talking about, there's a lot of different ways to do exactly what you're talking about, getting to the root of the issue. But I find that people feel very overstimulated by this. They're overstimulated by the information. They're overwhelmed by the new information concerning spirituality. People don't know what to trust. People don't know what to do. And then they just kind of get caught in this like limbo, and they're like, oh my gosh. So they have religion, right? They've grown up with their belief systems. Then there's spirituality. Then there's all these other modalities. So people are overwhelmed and they're overstimulated. So why do you think that is? Can you hit on that?
So what I've seen happen is a lot of times is what's going on now is people are kind of waking up in a sense of they're saying, oh, wow, I'm more than just a physical body going in the day-to-day motions. If I wake up, I go to work, I come home, and I'm not connected to anybody, I'm not connected to anything. People are looking for some type of connection, and I feel like that's what spirituality is. I feel like it's a connection to others, it's a connection to animals, it's a connection to plants. It's saying, oh, we all are together, and we all are connected to each other. You know what I mean? Like, it's a deeper meaning than just us living and existing. So spirituality is that's what it kind of means to me. But different people nowadays are looking for something different because they've realized what they've been told in life or what they've learned isn't working for them. And they also see online that people are doing more like meditation, getting into crystals, aromatherapy, other like kind of alternative stuff that's not really in the mainstream. It's starting to become mainstream now, and people are like, oh, that's cool, and it kind of resonates with them because they do feel a connection to it. But there is a lot of misguided information on there, and it is overstimulated in a sense, because when you kind of dive into it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's kind of like never seen a book before and going into a library. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of information. And so, you know, the best thing I would say is there are so many modalities out there. Modalities meaning types of therapies that if it resonates with you and you feel good for it, like, you know, you feel in your gut if it feels right, if it feels bad. You know, right. You know if it feels good to you, if it doesn't. If you're like talking about, it's like, okay, this is a good example. So tarot cards. A lot of people associate that with witches. And a lot of people, like, to me, I still don't like the word, and I don't like it. Like, that's just me. But, you know, but you see what I mean by like you know, I mean, you're looking for something, you're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. In your gut, you're like, but I'm just saying there could be a lot of things from that. And so like there's things called like angel cards. See, I feel positive about that because it is only positive and it's not negative. So you can kind of trust your gut on different things too. You know what I mean?
Well, what if somebody is fearful? Because I have people will say, trust your intuition or trust your gut, but they don't know how to separate that from being fearful. And yeah. I find that whenever I'm like, okay, let's do Kundalini, let's chant some mantra. I mean, whenever I say God, I mean source, spirit, creator, the universe. But whenever people who are specifically religious, they hear that, they think, well, wait, I can't do that because I'm going to be chanting to another God. Wait, but I really want to do that, but I can't because I'm fearful. But it feels good, but they can't. And then they have this push-pull. And then some people are so mad at God. Some people are like, F this. And that's how I was, that I didn't want to be spiritual, but it felt good to go to yoga class. and I didn't know, and I was scared. So how do you navigate that? How does theta healing do that?
So that's what I was going to say. So with what I was going to touch on is with different modalities and different types of therapies, there are many types of therapies that help different stuff, such as like, you know, you can actually work through a lot of this a lot of stuff by doing meditation. You know what I mean? Like there's so many stuff, and I know you do different stuff, Kendra, that I don't do, you know, and so, but it works for different people. For me, what works is theta healing. And so with theta basically is, I was fearful of so much stuff doing theta healing sessions, like even with people, like connecting, doing a lot of stuff. Like I've had clients that have even just like walking them up in a meditation wise, they can't even get like passed on out of the body because they're so scared. And so it's like, so I wouldn't do that with them. You know what I mean? Like you would go and you'd work on, well, why are you scared? Like there's usually a root issue from it. And again, a lot of that can be religious stuff. And a lot of that is just beliefs passed on from religion, because you know, growing up with that, it could have scared the hell out of you. You know what I mean? Like,
can you be religious and be spiritual?
Yeah. So, and that's the thing too. So you can be religious if you want to. That's no big deal. A lot of my clients are Christian. It is not an issue. And so when you're changing belief systems, a lot of things are good, but some of them aren't good. Like if you're holding on to something like a religious belief of like, you have to sacrifice yourself for different things or others, that's actually not good. You know what I mean? Like you technically don't have to sacrifice yourself. You can still be religious. You can still believe in the Holy Spirit, Jesus, God. You can still believe in all that stuff. But you know, beliefs doesn't have to go along with all of that. You know what I mean? You can still go to church. You can still do stuff. But if you're fearful of being punished and going to hell, that fear needs to be cleared, because unconditional love means it's unconditioned. And if you understand what unconditioned means, that means there's no conditions. That means no matter what you do, you're loved. That's what unconditional means. So my God is a loving God. It's unconditional love. So you're kind of forgiven for everything you do. I'm not saying go murder somebody, you're going to be forgiven. But you know what I mean? It's basically, so like changing belief systems around like religion and church, that's okay. And if that person doesn't want to change it, that's fine too. But a lot of people don't realize they have those, you know, and it's just even like, so like I was saying, so you like, you know, with the Taro thing, a lot of people think that, oh, that's Satan and I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, right. Well, why are you fearful of it? I'm not saying you don't have to do it. I don't want to do it, but, and you could be tapped into not good stuff, but you can choose to say, oh, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to, rather than being super scared and terrified, you know? And so that's how you can kind of tell. You're like, I don't like that, you know, and I don't want to do that. But yeah, if it's coming from a place of being fearful and terrified, there's a root to that. But yeah, you could, it's really simple to just change beliefs around.
How do inner child traumas, like, could they be involved in that? They are. Could they be? But how would they be involved in this topic of limiting belief systems, of spirituality, of cutting your connection off to source energy? How would a childhood trauma project into that? That's a question from one of our viewers. Okay. I'm gonna say this, and I know this, it gets kind of like a little bit strange. So let's say and this happens, and it's kind of, it happens a whole lot, I've realized, with people. And I didn't know it was a thing until I started doing theta healing almost 2.5-3 years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of people this stuff happens to, it blows your mind. But you just have to be strong for them and just love them and help them throughout it. So let's say someone got raped when they were 9 or 10 years old, or something happened to them that was traumatic. What can happen is they could have been taught that, you know, like you can pray and God will help you and God will do this. And they could have been praying nonstop for it to stop. And they could have prayed for like God to help them, and it still happened to them. And they didn't kind of understand why God didn't help them when this was happening. This is like an extreme, you know what I mean? This is kind of extreme. It's extreme, but it happens.
Yes. And so I'm just giving you a for instance. So, and they're praying to God that it'll stop, or, you know, they're taught that, you know, why would, and so you try to think, well, why would God do that to me? Even at like 8 or 9 years old, you still have these thoughts because, you know, you're intelligent. And so you still have these thoughts of why would this happen to me? Why would God do this to me? If God always has a plan, why would God plan for me to get raped or for this person to do this to me? And so then you start having resentment and you start hating God, and it develops, you know what I mean? And so, like, again, let's say, you know, you're in your 20s or 30s and you kind of forgot those things happen because you put it out of your mind, but you're still pissed off at God. And even a lot of people, even if you're religious, there's still stuff with why you're still pissed off at God. And those can be some of the reasons. Or let's say, you know, like you're in a hardcore, strict family of where they're religious, and, you know, like, let's say they hit you upside the head or they beat you because, you know, you did something God didn't like, which really they didn't like it. And so they chose to punish you for it, but you blame God for it. And so therefore you grow up resisting God.
Emotional abuse goes in here as well, I would say. So,
yeah, of course. And that's even saying, you know, like, you can't do this. And I know this sounds weird, but it even goes to like Lent. I know it sounds weird and stuff like that, of just like saying, oh, you can't have, I need to brush up on my Lent stuff. But, you know what I mean?
Catholicism.
But you know what I mean is, you can't have sweets. You can't have like pork. Or if you're denied something as a child, you get pissed off at God. You're like, why can't I have it? You know what I mean? So there are many reasons why it can develop, but you're not aware of it at the time.
No, I absolutely. So let's move on to agnostic and atheist. I was agnostic until I started Love or Above, which was another book dealing with spirituality and making vision boards, which I didn't know what it was called, and that was the start for me when I was 24. So what's your viewpoint on agnostic or atheist, and why might these be used as terms for people who actually do believe in something, but they're resentful or fearful?
Okay. So
okay.
I know it's a weird topic, because it's like when I talk about this, I'm like, okay, well, it's like you need to say things that you're actually going to talk to somebody that's agnostic or, you know, atheist. So how would you discuss that with them? So how I would kind of go about it, even talking to somebody straight up about this that has these beliefs, is, or, you know, that's what they believe, is what I have learned from my experiences with friends, colleagues, learning from others, hearing other people's stories about either agnostic or atheist. We're not talking about Satan worshipers. Okay, we're not talking about somebody that's into devil stuff. That's not what agnostic is, and that's not what atheist is. Basically, you know, one of my friends is, or, you know, he's agnostic. And so agnostic doesn't believe in anything. But, you know, I know him, and after talking to him, I'm like, he believes in something. He's not agnostic. Agnostic doesn't believe in anything. And so basically, like with agnostic and atheist, basically you're alive, you're not connected to anything. That's what it means. You're not connected to anything. Basically, it's kind of like almost a scientific view, like an old scientific view, because we're into a different science now we're getting into. And so as a science community, it's very amazing. But basically, it's an old scientific view in a sense of we are all here randomly on a planet that decided to have life. There's no other life in the universe. We're the only people, and we live, and then we just die. And we're, you know, that's kind of like what it is. And so they don't believe in anything. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in connection to anything. They just believe we're here and we're dead. That's it. And so most people actually don't truly believe it, because if you listen to them or if you know them, they'll say things that they coincide with each other and they don't mesh. So, like, you know, I've heard my friend talk about many times the universe, or he'll talk about like the universe, or like, you know, how it was really cool, like, you know, just to see like his connection to how the sunset is, or like how he's connected to the dog, or like how the universe works. I'm like, okay. So I've asked him, I was like, so you're agnostic and you don't believe anything? He's like, no. And I was like, but you just said this, and this, and you know, we've talked about it. And I was like, so you've told me before you believe in like the universe. And he's like, well, yeah. And I was like, well, you believe in something, so you're actually not agnostic.
Right.
You get what I mean? I was like, so a lot of times you hold on to this thing of atheism. Go ahead, Kendra.
I remember you saying whenever we're little and we're religious, but then we just try to just cut it off and turn it off. You can't do that because you have belief systems that have been bred, embedded in you, and you can't just cut it off and leave it. You're still living your life based on belief systems in which you believe with, because you haven't looked at those.
So that's kind of like another thing. So basically, so let's say an atheist. Okay, so let's really do this real fast. Let's just talk about like atheists. Most people that, again, are atheists or agnostic, something happened in their life where they became mad at God, they're upset with God, or something happened where they blame God, and they kind of don't realize it, or it keeps them safe. And that's the thing too. Most things of belief systems and everything, it's not bad. It's just keeping you safe. You know, it's because something happened and it's keeping you safe, such as, let's say, okay, again, you're raised up in a religious household and your dad beats you and you're forced to go to church. So you rebel and you say, I'm not believing in God anymore. And it keeps you safe because you're not exposing yourself to that anymore, you know? So you're not being exposed to, you know, it's kind of like a defiance that's keeping you safe, and you still held on to that thing of, I'm an atheist. But technically you're not. If you're raised up in a Christian household, if you listen to people that were raised up in a Christian household, they will tell you belief after belief after belief that are Christian-based or religion-based, and they still live by it. But they say that, oh, I'm not into, you know, I'm an atheist. But they don't really realize that they still have Christian belief systems.
And living their life out of resentment and fear.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's just because it kept them safe, though. And they can clear that with theta healing. It's actually really easy to clear stuff with theta healing.
You want to talk about ways to approach clearing out limiting beliefs and situational blocks? That was a question from our viewer.
Yeah, so basically, like, situational blocks, like, oh gosh. I'm trying to think of, like, the best example-wise. So what is a good thing to do is, okay, let's say you come in for a session and you're really having some issues with religion. Okay, so you're having issues with religion, that's fine. Or you feel lost. Let's say lost, okay? So you come in and you're feeling lost. And even if it's not about religion, there's different things that can block you from connecting to God. Let's say, okay, well, I don't feel connected to God. I can't connect to God. And so, okay, so you start visiting with them about it and you're saying, okay, well, why don't you feel connected to God? You know, when it's kind of like you're just asking questions, but I'm intuitively guided to ask questions. And what I mean by that is intuitively guided is, I'm connected to source energy and to creational energy. And so intuitively, psychically, whatever, there's many different ways you can get information. And so you kind of like talk to God about it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, ask this. And it's not like another person. It's completely different. It's in and of itself, it's amazing. And so that's how I'm kind of like guided to ask. Like, let's say I go into a session with somebody straight up and I'm like, oh, like as soon as like I connect with them and I asked to connect with them and I connect with them and I know they said, you know, I want to work on connection issues with like God, or, you know, I don't kind of, you know, I'm a little confused on something. And so I can say, as soon as I connect with that person, you know, I may get the answer of, oh, this happened this time and this is what we need to do. You know, but sometimes you just can't say, okay, well, when you were 6 years old, this is what happened to you and your dog died and you didn't know how to process it. And so you get what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Are you ever too old to do this? Are you ever too old to just start exploring, being curious, seeking other sources of energy or releasing things?
There's no way, because I have one client, a massage client, and you know, a lot of times on massage people, it's kind of like going to your beauty, you know, your hairstylist, bartender or something, where you like spill your whole life to them. So that kind of coincides with both my works, you know what I mean? Like I hear people's issues a lot. And so with her, she's 86 years old, and I didn't know that you could become spiritually awakened at that age, but you can. And the amount of stuff that she's gone through in her 86 years of life is insane. But I've never met an 86-year-old woman that's gone through an enlightenment at that age. It's crazy. And it's just like, okay, like let's just say it's 20 or 30-year-olds now that are like talking about all this stuff and like, I'm working through this, and this, and I'm still doing this. She's aware and doing it too. And, you know, she's religious, but she knows that there's something more than that. And she's had to stand up to her daughter, her son, her friends, and like, I tell them, I don't believe that, and this is what it is. And, you know, and she still has like religious friends, and they think she's a whack job because they have, you know, like issues around it. So she's had to work with a lot of issues of being rejected by people because she's that age and believing in like natural stuff or meditating or doing, you know what I mean? Just really cool stuff at that age. So it doesn't matter. You can work on yourself at any age. It's a lot of stuff to work through. And also when you're working with older people, you have to realize they were in a different world at that time. They may have been married off 12 years old. That's uncommon now. So I'm just saying they have a lot of trauma and issues that they go through because they're a lot older, and they were also born in another time.
But you're still able to help them.
Of course. Anybody can.
How does branching out and finding a tribe help with this transition?
Branching out and finding a tribe.
I would say creating a community around it. Yes. Because, like, how would you say that this helps with the transition of implementing new modalities in your life whenever you're around people who may not understand what you're going through or what questions you're asking? How does creating a community and having people to go to or a person to go to help with that?
Okay, so with me, I can find it where, and I've been working on this more and more, and also, okay, so basically when you get into stuff like this and you start like transitioning a little bit to more positive stuff or working on yourself, mainly it's working on yourself of saying, oh, how do I want my life to be? You know, I don't want this in my life anymore. I'll be happier if I do this. Even if I change jobs or go back to school, I'll be happier doing this. Or if I want to change my hair, you know, like, and when you're working on yourself or loving yourself, a lot of times you lose some friends because, you know, let's say you stop drinking. Well, you know, probably almost all your friends are going to go away if they're just drinking buddies. So you kind of also start to feel isolated as well. So when you're switching into different groups of people, it's not difficult and you don't feel lonely. What I've learned, and I lived in Austin for like 2.5, 3 years, and, you know, I was going through a lot of stuff then, or, you know, just transitioning like everybody does. And, I was by myself all the time. I was going into depression. You know, I wouldn't do anything. And I really learned that if I would have put myself in different activities with like-minded people, I would have met people. You know what I mean? And that's a huge thing. I had that realization after I moved back to Odessa, right? So, but that's okay. You know, it's a lesson learned. So, you know, if I would have done stuff, I probably wouldn't have been in that situation. So if I would have went to meditation classes, you would have found people that, you know, are in that mindset. You would resonate with them. You can try other things to say, oh, you know, that ain't for me. I've tried a lot of things and I'm like, you know, even in that community, because let's say you go to a yoga class, you know, not everybody's going to be the same. So, you know, let's say there's, for instance, I'm not talking about like actual ones in Odessa, but okay, we'll talk about Austin. That way it's not personal. So, so let's say you're in Austin and there's like 3 types of yoga studios in like a 5-mile radius. You know, one's in a good side of town, one's not, and another one's like in a semi-okay side of town. You're going to get a different experience at all those places. You might not like somebody at the rich side of town. I'm not saying anything about rich people, which that can be belief systems to work on too. But I'm just saying, if somebody's like snooty or whatever, you're like, oh, I don't like that, you know, and you can't just diss yoga and everybody together because those type of people were there. Go to more than one place. You know, it's just like anywhere you go, there's going to be more than one type of person. So basically go out, go do stuff, because it really helps. Like, take a class. And the classes that I've took is what has really helped me, because like taking theta healing classes, crystal viewing layouts, Reiki, other stuff, when you're interested in that stuff, you take them and you get to talk with other people about what you believe. And I think that's amazing to have other people understand what you're going through, because with my friends, like I've said now, is I've used to be I'm used to talking a certain way now, or like, oh, you know, I cleared this. I didn't know this was stemming from this. And they kind of understand me now because I've been doing this for 3 years now almost. And I've talked to them so much about it. They're used to it. So some people do transition along with you, friend or family wise, but you still have to have those people that support you and like understand you, or kind of like not go insane, but you kind of feel very like disconnected and like, well, by myself.
So hitting on that really quick, if you are part of a religious community and you're going into spirituality, or you're part of a family like ours who doesn't understand you and I really, how do you talk to people who don't really understand where you're coming from, and you're not able to let them release from your life, or you're wanting to change the dynamic? How do you become okay with that? Besides creating a community, how do you
keep someone in your life, basically?
Uncomfortable feelings. Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, I feel like there's 2 things to touch on here. You know, let's say that you have family members that are negative or narcissistic or extremely, you know, we're just going to hit on that. And that, you know, it's what I've learned with family members is you can be around them, but you're in control of your life. You actually do not have to be around somebody if you don't want to, just because you're blood related. But you can limit your time with them if you don't like it, but you have to have boundaries. And it's a huge thing about boundaries, because if I go over to someone that's a family member and they're constantly putting me down, you can deny that. You can say, you know, I'm not going to accept that. You know, you're making me feel this way when you say that. You can talk to them, have a discussion with them about it. And if that doesn't want to change, you say, well, when you do that, I'm not going to be around you if you do that to me. But you see what I mean? But a lot of people have issues with even saying that. They have issues with that because there's a lot of fear around that. Of if I say that to that person, they're not going to love me anymore, and they're going to do this, this, and this to me.
Right.
Is it true? And, you know, it's okay maybe if it is, that will happen. You know, I'm just saying you can work on that with theta. But even if that does happen, that's okay, because why would you want to be around somebody who doesn't respect or love you? But
what
you
if
can
you're in a household with people that are like that, and you're living with them? How would you do it then?
Okay, so are you just talking about like having a conversation with them, or transitioning out of that lifestyle?
How do you put yourself in a peaceful space and also have the courage to transition out of that space?
So I think it's situational, and it's kind of like how I see with a lot of clients is like, okay, people have kind of like not issues, but I look at things, I'm like, okay, that's something there. Let's solve it. Let's fix it. You know, so everybody is different. And so let's just make up this person that's living with everybody in a household that sucks, you know, or you know what I mean? That's not good for them. And so basically when they're in this, what they can do is they can say, okay, I'm going to make a plan besides like helping themselves, getting help and, you know, learning, loving themselves, all that, how they can transition out of that. Let's say this person can, okay, I'm in this situation. How can I get out? Well, you know, right now there's lots of benefits from living here. Let's say I don't have to pay rent or anything right now, but I'm going to school and I'm doing this. So if I can go to school right now, then I can get the job I want or whatever it is, to learning or whatever, to transition out of that. They can actually do that. They just have to have a game plan. You know what I mean? Like if there's a will, there's a way. And 100% that's true. And if you don't know a way, there's other people that can help you. You know what I mean? Can have a different perspective, that can see things, but you have to, you know what I mean? But it's usually not like, you can go to friends, but they're still going to have opinions of things and what they want to do. So it is kind of good to maybe go to a counselor, or not a counselor, but like theta healing, you know, other modalities, as somebody that's like not biased, where they're like, well, this is what I feel like would be the best, rather than like, you know, somebody personal that's saying, oh, you know, kind of misguiding you. But also, go ahead, Kendra, what were you going to say?
I have so speaking about all of this, how does spirituality complete your whole body balance mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually? How would being disconnected from spirit not make you feel balanced in a whole body way, seeing as everything's connected?
I think that is a huge thing is with, okay, so basically, let's say there's 7 areas of your life. And if you kind of think of them all being balanced, it's like, okay, this is a great analogy. So let's say there's at the circus a long time ago, if you're older, you would know. At the circus a long time ago, there used to be plate spinners, and they would spin plates on like poles, or I don't know what you call it, like a stick. Anyways, so they would spin the plates, and let's say they have 7 plates going. If you're spending too much time on one plate, the rest are going to fall and crash. Do you get what I mean? Like if a guy's spending, let's say a husband or male or whatever spending, or it could be a woman, is spending too much time at work, and everything else is falling out of balance in life because they're always at work. That means their relationships with people, having fun, family-wise, taking care of themselves, it all goes to crap because it's not balanced. So a lot of people don't think that spirituality is a thing as well, but it is. Spirituality, I just say it's connection with God. So basically when you're connected and you're saying, okay, I am connected to things, I am working on things, I do feel good. So basically, like in theta healing, like I'm an instructor as well. And so if you're interested in that, feel free to go to my website at shelbygrimes.com or ask me about it or anything like that. If you have any questions about anything. But so in a theta healing class, a practitioner class, the first one, it's a lot of information, but it's really good. So basically we teach you how to connect with God. And basically when you connect with God, you start to co-create with God or source energy. Co-creating is where basically you're creating with the creator. And so you're creating the life you want, because this is the life this is your life. You have free will, you have choices. So everything you want in life, you create. So you start learning like, oh, well, I am attracting that to me. So what do I need to get to another place, or where's this coming from? You can start co-creating. So like in a theta healing session, like I was working on somebody else, I work on myself with God all the time. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things. So once you start like working with that, like let's say I haven't worked on myself or whatever in a few weeks, let's say, and I haven't like connected to God, you start to actually feel disconnected and not good about things. It's kind of like working out. You know what I mean? Like if you don't work out, you feel good when you work out. And like for me wise, if I don't work out ever so often, I start feeling like almost depressed-ish inside, not good, lethargic. Kind of the same thing with like spiritual connection wise. So when you actually start feeling connected to things and like working on yourself or doing stuff and actually like feeling a part of something, you start to feel good. And then when that kind of like goes away, or it's not there, you're like, wow, there's a whole chunk of my life that's not missing. But the balance of it is when you're connected to stuff, basically everything starts going good in your life. Like you start feeling, wow, things are really flowing. You start realizing you're like attracting it and putting it out. And just right there, that's spiritual. When I talk about spiritual, it's not just like going and talking to God and doing stuff. It is everything. It's working in a synergistic way with everything. And that's a huge thing. And so when you're working on yourself or saying, attracting things to you, that's spiritual, And so if you're saying, okay, well, I'm manifesting this in my life. By the end of the week, I'm going to have, let's just say I want plenty of money to buy a chocolate bar that I wasn't going to be able to afford. That's actually manifesting. If you say you want a chocolate bar, heck, you could have went down the street and find a $5 bill on the road and you're like, cool, abundance, and you get a chocolate bar. That is, that is what manifesting is too, is just weird, not weird things, but it's things coming to you in ways you didn't expect before. But that right there is spirituality. Do you get what I mean? That's what spirituality is to me. It's not just, it's working synergistically and together. It's having connection with another person. Spirituality means I connect to you, I see you, I have reverence for you, meaning I know where you are. I don't have to like you, but I have respect and love for you because you are a soul, you are a human, and you're actually made up of the same things I am, because you're a part and piece of God, and I'm a part and piece of God. So even having that connection, recognizing that in something else, is spirituality. So there's lots of different things. Going outside and looking at the sunset, you're like, oh my God, that is absolutely beautiful. Or like a feather floating in the wind and just landing in front of you. You're like, wow, that's absolutely gorgeous. That is spirituality. So that's my thing, is spirituality is connected to everything, and just kind of seeing, wow, it's like kind of seeing the beauty in life and working with it. That's what that means to me.
Yes.
That's a balance. That's what I'm saying. And when it is
Yes.
balanced, you can really see things start to come to you, and you start kind of rolling with it, and you're like, wow, you know, and then you look back and you're like, dang, you know, I didn't, you know, I've overcome a lot of stuff, you know, but it's a lot of good.
So we're gonna, yes, it is. So we're gonna start wrapping things up. That was beautiful. Loved it. Does anyone have any questions? The Q&A part.
You can unmute yourself though.
Yeah. Yes. Unmute yourself. But does anyone have any questions? Okay, I guess not. That's fine. Okay. So,
if you have questions afterwards that you want answered, you can call, text, email, or anything with me. You're more welcome to. And also on one-on-one sessions with people, I don't think a lot of people realize that. I know Kendra does it too. Basically, maybe a lot of people might not do it if they don't advertise it. Or you talk about it. You can also ask somebody, because a lot of people that do like spiritual work or anything like that, or you talk to somebody, a lot of people may not keep it confidential, but they're supposed to. And so, you know, when you talk to somebody or you talk about things, your stuff doesn't get shared. Like, I don't tell people who my clients are. Not allowed to. It's a confidentiality thing. You know, yeah. So, you know, and you don't feel embarrassed to ask questions about anything or say, oh, I'm experiencing this, you know. But yeah.
So go ahead, Shelby, and give us your website.
My website?
Yes.
Oh, my website. Sorry, I'm not used to this thing still. But anyways, so website is shelbygrimeshealing.com. And I know I almost forgot my website. I was almost giving you my email address. I was like, because I'm so used to giving people my email address. I'm like, anyways, but yeah, it's shelbygrimeshealing.com. But you know, I got all social media of anything. And you know, like, if you have any questions all about anything, I'm not going to charge you to talk to you about stuff. You know what I mean? If you're curious about stuff, I'll talk to you about it. Anything. Okay. Yes. You know, you have any questions? Because I know people do, and they just don't know what. And like with theta healing, it is not just like spiritual counseling. It goes into a lot of stuff that people don't know about. We're talking about like past lives, angels, like the thing goes on and on and on. Like, okay, connecting and talking to like even trees or plants, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that you can do with theta healing, clearing radiation, balancing, you know, your hormones, chemicals, or brain chemicals, healing things, like magically healing like cancers, stuff like that, like illnesses, diseases, sicknesses. It's right. Amazing. It's not just like, oh, it's kind of like counseling. Oh no, it's way more than that. But that kind of overwhelms people if they're not open to it.
No, exactly.
And I'm not open. I mean, like if they're not, you know, if it's new.
Right. No, and I can totally vouch for you. We've had many good theta healing sessions together, and I've done it with Tiffany and Austin. So yeah, so my consulting services are Kendra Pennington, holisticselfhealing.com. And we'll go ahead and do a drawing for the winner of the book. So there were 3 people, and see, so we've got Jessica. So Jessica, I'll email you, and you can tell me which book you would like. If you don't want one, then let me know, and I will draw from the other 2 people. Okay. So,
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have to say this before anybody goes, is if you don't want to do stuff like that, okay, so if you're interested in anything, like you don't kind of know where to start with things, or you just need to work on yourself a little bit, I really, really do suggest getting Becoming Love. My mentor from England wrote it, and it's amazing. It's basically, it's a theta healing book as well, but it's like a self-work book, and there's 12 meditations that go along with it, and it's very gentle, but it helps you have reverence for others and start loving yourself. It's amazing. It's not like intense or hard or anything, but it's just like even sitting and like working on yourself in a sense of like looking at yourself like in the mirror for 30 seconds a day and staring at yourself, like, or looking into your eyes, and at the end of that telling yourself you love you. It's simple things like that are actually momentous.
No, I love Becoming Love The other one was more scientific for people who needed a little less. But yes, good plugin. Love her to death. So, okay, well, I appreciate everybody. Thank you, Shelby. You did amazing, and I hope it cleared up some stuff. So, adios, everybody. Y'all have a great night. Thanks, Shelby. Bye.
Thank you. You're welcome.